They called her a witch and lit the fire. Until the Gunslinger rode through flames, the desert planet of Ashara was a place where survival came before kindness. Red sand stretched across endless plains, broken only by metal towers, abandoned ships, and small frontier towns built from scraps of forgotten wars. People who lived here trusted their weapons more than strangers, and they believed anything different was dangerous. The town of Dry Hollow sat near an old mining canyon. Wind pushed dust through narrow streets, and old solar lamps flickered even during the day. Most settlers came to Ashara chasing fortune, but many stayed because they had nowhere else to go. One morning, whispers spread through Dry Hollow. They caught her. By noon, everyone gathered in the town square. Children stood behind their parents, watching with wide eyes. Traders stopped working. Even the sheriff leaned against a wooden post, silent and tired. At the center of the square stood a young woman tied to a metal pole. Her name was Alara. She did not look dangerous. Her dark hair moved gently with the wind, and her eyes stayed calm even as people shouted at her. Dust covered her clothes, but she stood straight, refusing to bow her head. "She's cursed," someone said. "I saw tools break when she walked past," another shouted. "The machines stop working near her," said the town preacher, a tall man with cold eyes. "She brings bad energy." The land rejects her. Fear moved through the crowd like a living thing. A few people hesitated, unsure, but fear was louder than doubt. The preacher raised his hands. "This world is harsh. If we allow strange powers, we invite destruction. We must protect our town." Alara closed her eyes for a moment, listening to the wind. She had heard these words before in many places. People always chose fear first. She spoke softly. "I never hurt anyone." Some villagers looked away. Others shouted louder to hide their uncertainty. The sheriff finally spoke. "Enough, we've seen strange things around you. Machines glitch, energy sensors spike, people are scared." Alara nodded slowly. "I understand fear, but fear doesn't mean I'm your enemy." The preacher stepped forward quickly. "She lies. We all saw the transport fall last week. She stopped it without touching it. That is not natural." Murmurs grew louder. "Yes, she stopped it," a farmer admitted quietly. "But it saved 3 lives." The preacher ignored him. "Witches often pretend to help before they destroy." The word witch spread through the crowd like fire through dry grass. Alara felt the weight of their judgment but stayed silent. She had learned that arguing rarely changed anything once people made up their minds. The elders decided quickly. They would burn her. Workers stacked wood around the metal pole. The sound of branches hitting the ground echoed like drumbeats. Some villagers watched with excitement, others with guilt. Far away from Dry Hollow, a lone rider crossed the desert. Cale rode a mechanical horse built from alloy and muscle-like wires. Its glowing eyes scanned the horizon while sand slid beneath its metal hooves without slowing it down. Cale wore a long coat that moved like shadow behind him. Underneath were weapons older than most governments but stronger than anything on Ashara. His face remained calm, but his eyes studied a small device in his hand. A signal blinked repeatedly. He had been tracking that signal for years. He whispered quietly, "Found you." He urged the horse forward, increasing speed. Back in Dry Hollow, the sky turned orange as evening approached. Flames from cooking fires filled the air with smoke. The townspeople believed sunset was the right time for judgment. Alara watched the sky change colors. Despite everything, she felt peaceful. Energy moved around her, invisible but alive. She could feel the planet breathing beneath her feet, the deep vibration of ancient stone, the quiet pulse of hidden water, even the emotions of the people surrounding her. Fear felt heavy. Like a storm waiting to break, a young boy pushed through the crowd suddenly. "She's not bad," he said loudly. "She fixed my drone when nobody else could." His mother pulled him back quickly. "Be quiet." The preacher glared at the child. "Even dark forces can pretend kindness." The sheriff looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Alara sighed softly. She had traveled across many worlds hiding her abilities, hoping one day someone would understand instead of fear. But history repeated itself. The woodpile was finished. Torches were prepared. The crowd grew silent. Just as the preacher reached for a torch, a distant sound echoed across the desert. At first it was faint, a low thunder mixed with mechanical rhythm. Heads turned. Dust rose on the horizon. A rider approached fast. The sheriff narrowed his eyes. "Who rides like that?" Within seconds, the figure became clear, a lone gunslinger racing toward town without slowing down. "Cale." He did not slow when he reached the outer buildings. People jumped aside as he rode straight through the street, coat flowing behind him like a dark flag. His mechanical horse stopped only when it reached the edge of the fire circle. Cale looked at Alara. She opened her eyes and recognized him instantly. Hope flickered for the first time. The preacher stepped forward angrily. "Stranger, this is town business. Leave now." Cale said nothing at first. His gaze moved across the crowd, studying their faces, their weapons, their fear. Finally, he spoke calmly. "You're about to make a mistake you cannot undo." The sheriff stepped forward cautiously. "You know her?" "Yes," Cale replied, "and she is not what you think." Murmurs spread again. The preacher raised his voice. "He is protecting her. That proves she is dangerous." Cale slowly dismounted. His boots touched the ground without sound. He walked toward the firewood calmly, ignoring the weapons aimed at him. "Step back," the sheriff warned. Cale stopped just outside the circle, heat from the torches reflected in his eyes. "She is not a witch," he said quietly. "She is rare and powerful, but she has never harmed anyone." The preacher laughed harshly. "Power itself is danger." Cale looked directly at him. "No, fear is." Silence filled the square. Wind moved through the streets, lifting dust into the air like a curtain rising before a new act. Above them, far beyond the clouds, something moved silently through space, watching. And the real danger was already on its way. The wind moved slowly across the square, carrying heat from the torches and the quiet tension between strangers. Cale stood facing the crowd, calm but ready. His coat shifted slightly, revealing the edge of a metallic holster. The townspeople watched him carefully. Some felt relief seeing someone challenge the preacher, while others feared this stranger might bring more danger. Alara watched him closely. She remembered him from years ago, a protector who appeared only when hope felt lost. But she also knew his presence meant something serious was coming. The preacher stepped forward again, his voice sharp. "You arrive uninvited and question our judgment. This woman brings strange power. We protect our people." Cale did not raise his voice. "You protect them with fear." Murmurs spread through the crowd again. Some villagers shifted uncomfortably. The sheriff raised a hand to calm everyone. "Enough arguing. Stranger, explain yourself. Why should we trust you?" Cale looked at the sheriff for a moment, measuring him. The sheriff's eyes showed doubt, but also fairness. "I have spent years tracking energy signals across frontier worlds," Cale said slowly. "People like her are rare. They are not cursed. They are connected to natural energy fields. Some call them harmonics." The word sounded strange to the townspeople. "She saved lives," Cale continued. "You said she stopped a falling transport. That was not destruction, that was protection." A farmer nodded quietly, remembering. The preacher interrupted quickly. "Power always leads to disaster." "History proves this." Cale shook his head. "History proves fear leads to worse." Silence followed his words. Alara finally spoke, her voice calm but tired. "I never wanted attention. I only tried to help." A young woman from the crowd stepped forward hesitantly. "My daughter was sick last winter. She sat beside her all night. The fever stopped." Others looked surprised. They had not heard that story before. The preacher's expression tightened. He realized control was slipping. "She manipulates you," he said loudly. "Dark forces often appear kind." Cale's eyes hardened slightly, but he stayed calm. "You speak as if you know everything, but you are afraid of what you cannot control." The sheriff crossed his arms. "If she's not dangerous, why does strange technology react to her?" Cale answered carefully. "Because her energy interacts with machines, not as a weapon, as a signal. She is like a living key." Confusion spread across the crowd. Before anyone could respond, a faint humming sound echoed through the sky. Everyone looked upward. At first, nothing could be seen. Then clouds shifted slightly, revealing a distant shadow moving silently across the stars. Cale's expression changed. He whispered almost to himself, "They found us faster than I expected." Alara felt it too, a pressure in the air like a storm approaching. The sheriff noticed their reaction. "What is that?" Cale turned toward him. "The real danger." The humming grew louder. A streak of light crossed the sky and stopped high above Dry Hollow. It was not a natural star, it moved with purpose. Fear returned to the crowd. The preacher stepped back slowly, nervous now. "What have you brought here?" Cale ignored him and moved closer to Alara. "We need to leave," he said quietly. She shook her head gently. "If we run, they will follow. These people will suffer." Cale hesitated. He knew she was right. Suddenly, several small shapes detached from the ship above and descended rapidly toward the desert outside town. Dust clouds rose where they landed. The sheriff grabbed his rifle. "Everyone inside, now!" People began moving quickly, panic spreading through the square. Cale quickly cut Alara's restraints with a small energy blade hidden in his glove. She stepped free, rubbing her wrists. "Who are they?" she asked. "Corporate hunters," Cale said. "They capture energy-sensitive individuals. To them, you are valuable equipment." Alara's face tightened. She had heard rumors but never faced them directly. The preacher stared at Cale with anger and fear. "You brought this danger?" Cale turned toward him sharply. "No. Your fear made you visible. They monitor emotional spikes and energy activity. The moment you tried to burn her, you sent a signal across space." The preacher said nothing, realizing his mistake. The sheriff returned with several armed settlers. Unknown figures approaching from the canyon. Cale moved toward the street entrance. Figures appeared through the dust, tall armored hunters carrying advanced weapons. Their armor reflected sunlight like mirrors, hiding their faces. One stepped forward and spoke through a mechanical voice. "Energy signature confirmed. Transfer the target and no one will be harmed." The crowd froze. Alara felt fear rising inside her, but she forced herself to stay calm. Cale stepped forward slowly, placing himself between the hunters and the townspeople. "She is not your property," he said. The lead hunter tilted its head slightly. "Resistance is unnecessary." Energy weapons powered up with a low hum. The sheriff aimed his rifle but looked uncertain. Their weapons seemed weak compared to the hunter's technology. Alara felt the energy around her growing stronger, reacting to danger. Small waves of light shimmered faintly around her hands. Cale noticed and spoke softly without turning. "Stay focused, control your breathing," she nodded. The hunters took another step forward. One villager shouted and fired suddenly. The shot hit a hunter's armor but did nothing. The hunters raised their weapons. Cale moved instantly, drawing his revolver. A single precise shot hit the ground in front of the hunters, creating a shockwave that forced them back without harming them. "I warned you," Cale said calmly. Tension filled the air like a held breath. The lead hunter paused, analyzing. Above them, the ship shifted position. Alara felt something deep inside her respond. Energy flowed through her like warm light, spreading outward gently. For the first time, she did not hide it. The ground vibrated slightly. The townspeople watched in awe as soft, glowing waves moved around her, not dangerous but powerful. Cale smiled slightly. "That's it. Don't fight the energy, let it move." The hunters adjusted their weapons again, recognizing the growing power. The battle had not started yet. But everyone could feel it was coming. And this time, Dry Hollow would have to choose between fear and trust. The air felt heavy, as if the desert itself was holding its breath. Alara stood beside Cale, feeling energy move around her like waves in a quiet ocean. The hunters remained still for a moment, studying her. Their armor reflected the light of the setting sun, making them look almost unreal. The townspeople gathered behind Cale, unsure whether to run or stand their ground. Fear was still there, but something else had started to grow, curiosity, maybe even hope. The lead hunter raised a hand slowly. "Final request," the mechanical voice said. "Release the target." Cale did not move. "She is not a target, she is a person." The hunter paused as if calculating. Then everything changed in a second. A sharp sound echoed through the air as energy weapons powered up fully. Bright lines of light aimed directly at Alara. Cale reacted instantly. He fired a precise shot into the ground again, sending dust into the air and breaking the hunter's aim for a moment. "Everyone take cover," the sheriff shouted. People ran toward buildings and carts. Children were pulled away by parents. The quiet town square turned into chaos. Alara felt panic rising inside her, but she remembered Cale's voice. "Control your breathing." She closed her eyes briefly. The energy inside her felt warm, not dangerous. It moved with her emotions, growing stronger when she focused. The hunters fired. Bright beams crossed the air, hitting walls and sending sparks into the sky. Cale moved quickly, stepping between attacks with calm precision. His revolver fired again, each shot creating shockwaves that pushed the hunters back without destroying them. He avoided lethal strikes. Even in battle, he chose control over destruction. "Alara," he called, "shield them." She opened her eyes. Fear still lived inside her, but she reached for the energy anyway. Soft light spread outward from her hands, forming a faint barrier around nearby villagers. Energy beams hit the shield and scattered harmlessly like rain against glass. Gasps filled the air. "She's protecting us," someone whispered. The sheriff stared in disbelief but lowered his weapon slightly. He began to understand the truth. The lead hunter stepped forward again, adjusting tactics. Subject demonstrates advanced harmonic control. Capture priority increased. More hunters appeared from the canyon, moving with perfect coordination. Cale realized the situation was becoming dangerous. "They're testing you," he said quietly to Alara. "They want you to lose control." She nodded slowly. "I won't," she said. Her voice sounded stronger now. The energy around her became brighter, not wild but steady. Meanwhile, behind the crowd, the preacher watched with a troubled expression. Sweat moved across his forehead. He stepped slowly backward, trying to slip away unnoticed. The sheriff saw him. "Where are you going?" I must pray," the preacher said quickly. But Cale noticed something strange, a small communication device hidden under the preacher's sleeve. Cale's eyes narrowed. He remembered seeing similar devices used by corporate informants. The preacher turned, trying to escape through an alley. Cale moved instantly, blocking his path. "You sent the signal," Cale said quietly. The preacher's face turned pale. "I did what was necessary," he said defensively. "They promised protection, resources, power. This town struggles to survive. I made a deal." Anger spread through the nearby villagers who overheard. "You betrayed us," the sheriff said, shocked. "They said they would only take her," the preacher replied. "No one else would be harmed." A loud explosion interrupted them as an energy blast hit a nearby tower, sending metal crashing down. The hunters were growing more aggressive. Cale turned back toward the battle. "Your deal just put everyone in danger." Alara felt her focus slipping as fear returned. The hunters' attacks increased, pushing against her shield. Cale moved beside her again. "Listen to me," he said calmly. "Your power is not just defense, it connects to the world around you. Feel the ground." She closed her eyes again, reaching deeper. For the first time, she felt the planet clearly, deep vibrations beneath the sand, hidden energy lines flowing like rivers. Her fear slowly turned into calm strength. The shield expanded outward, stronger now. Energy beams from the hunters reflected away harmlessly. The crowd stared in amazement. "She's saving us," the farmer said softly. The sheriff nodded slowly. "We judged too quickly." Cale noticed the hunters changing formation again. "They're preparing something bigger," he said. Above them, the ship moved slightly, releasing a small drone that descended rapidly toward the square. The drone emitted a loud pulse of energy, trying to disrupt Alara's control. She staggered slightly. Cale reacted instantly, firing upward. The drone exploded into pieces, falling harmlessly into the sand. "Stay with me," he said gently. Alara breathed slowly, regaining balance. "I'm not afraid anymore," she said quietly. Her energy changed again, calmer, brighter. Instead of only defending, she sent a gentle wave outward that pushed the hunters backward without harming them. Sand lifted into the air around them like a living storm. The hunters paused, reassessing. For the first time, they seemed unsure. The lead hunter spoke again. "Unexpected resistance detected." Cale smiled slightly. "You picked the wrong town." The townspeople stepped forward behind him, no longer hiding. The sheriff raised his rifle. "This is our home, you leave." Others joined him, standing beside Alara. Fear had turned into unity. The hunters slowly retreated a few steps, clearly planning their next move. Cale knew this was only the beginning. "They won't give up," he said quietly. Alara nodded. "Then we won't either." The desert wind moved around them, carrying dust and the promise of another battle. And somewhere above, the ship waited, preparing for one final attempt. The desert sky darkened slowly as night approached, but the battle was not over. Dust floated through the air, glowing softly in the fading light. The townspeople stood together behind Cale and Alara, no longer hiding. Fear still existed, but it had changed into determination. Above them, the massive corporate ship shifted again. Its metal surface reflected the stars like cold eyes watching from space. Cale studied the movement carefully. "They're preparing a final capture attempt," he said quietly. Alara felt it too. The energy around her trembled slightly, reacting to the threat above. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathing slowly. "I won't run anymore," she said. Cale nodded. "You don't have to." The sheriff stepped closer. "Tell us what to do." Cale looked at the townspeople. Hours earlier, they had been ready to burn Alara. Now they stood ready to defend her. The change gave him hope. "Stay together," Cale said. "They want to separate us. If we stand as one, we have a chance." The wind grew stronger, pushing sand across the streets. Suddenly, beams of light shot down from the ship, forming a glowing circle around the town square. The air vibrated with power. More hunters descended inside the circle, stronger and larger than before. Their armor glowed faintly, showing advanced technology designed for capture missions. The lead hunter stepped forward again. Last warning, surrender the harmonic subject. Alara stepped forward before anyone else could speak. No, she said calmly, her voice carried across the square with surprising strength. The hunter paused. You choose conflict. Kale moved beside her. No, he said, we choose freedom. The hunters raised their weapons. Energy filled the air, humming loudly. Kale fired first, not to destroy, but to disrupt. His shot created a shockwave that broke the hunters' formation. The townspeople fired their weapons too, distracting the hunters long enough for Alara to focus. She felt the energy around her grow stronger than ever before. Instead of fear, she felt clarity. She reached deeper into the planet's energy, feeling its pulse, its ancient strength. Light formed around her like a soft storm. The hunters fired, but their attacks slowed as her energy pushed against them, bending their aim away from the villagers. Kale moved through the battle like a shadow, precise and controlled. Every shot protected someone, every movement guided by years of experience. But the ship above began charging something larger. A deep vibration spread through the air. Kale looked up. They're activating a containment beam, he said. If that hits, they'll take you no matter what. Alara understood. She would have to face the ship directly. Fear tried to return, but she pushed it away. I can feel its energy, she said softly. It's strong but not alive. Kale nodded. Machines follow patterns. You can change those patterns. She took a deep breath. The beam fired. A massive column of light descended toward her. For a moment, everything became silent. Alara lifted her hands slowly. Instead of resisting with force, she reached into the energy itself, feeling its structure. She guided it gently, like redirecting flowing water. The beam bent slightly. The hunters hesitated, confused. The light changed direction, scattering into the sky harmlessly. Gasps filled the square. She stopped it, someone whispered. Alara felt stronger now, more connected than ever. The energy of the planet moved through her like a living partner. She extended her hands again. A wave of light spread outward across the town, pushing the hunters back without harming them. Their armor flickered as systems failed. Above them, the ship struggled to maintain control. Kale smiled slightly. That's it. You're not fighting the energy, you're guiding it. Alara focused one final time. The ground vibrated gently. Energy rose upward like a rising tide, surrounding the ship in the sky, not destructive but overwhelming. The ship's engines failed one by one. Warning lights flashed across its surface. Realizing they could not win, the hunters retreated toward their transport pods. Within moments, they launched back toward the damaged ship. The containment beam faded. Silence returned to Dry Hollow. The ship turned slowly and disappeared into the darkness of space. The battle was over. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then cheers erupted across the square. People approached Alara carefully, no longer with fear but with gratitude. The sheriff stepped forward first. We were wrong, he said quietly. You saved us even after what we tried to do. Alara smiled gently. Fear makes people forget who they are, but you remembered. The preacher stood nearby, ashamed. He lowered his head, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Kale watched everything silently. The night sky filled with stars as calm returned to the town. Later, near the edge of Dry Hollow, Kale prepared his mechanical horse. Alara stood beside him, watching the desert. You're leaving, she said. Yes, he answered. And you should come with me. The galaxy is wide. Others like you need protection, and maybe one day they will need your guidance. She looked back toward the town. People waved from a distance, no longer calling her a witch. She felt peace. Yes, she said finally. I'm ready. They mounted the mechanical horse together. As they rode into the desert, the wind carried stories of what had happened. How a gunslinger rode through flames to save someone called a witch, and how that witch became a guardian instead of a victim. Behind them, Dry Hollow began to change. Fear had been replaced by understanding, and somewhere beyond the horizon, new adventures waited for the Flame Rider and the gunslinger who never stopped protecting the lost. The legend had only just begun.